The Galactic Exchange Hub floated like a silver crown in the darkness of space. Thousands of species visited the station every week, each carrying their own culture, rules, and ways of speaking. For most travelers, it was a place of learning and discovery. For Zaylira of the Sarathi, it was a place where she expected everyone to admire her. She walked through the grand entrance of the hub with slow, graceful steps. Her species, the Sarathi, were known for their tall shape, shimmering skin, and natural empathic energy. From childhood, Zaylira was told one thing over and over. Others admire us. Others desire our presence. Our beauty brings harmony. She never questioned it. Why would she? Every alien she met always treated her with kindness, smiles, or polite compliments. In her mind, all of them were signs of interest. So, when a merchant bowed at her on the station's main walkway, Zaylira smiled gently. He admires me, she thought. When a medic stopped to ask if she needed assistance with her heavy travel bag, she felt warm inside. She must be drawn to me. Even a passing droid that announced, "Welcome, traveler," made her feel that her presence was special. Zaylira believed these things deeply. She did not see arrogance in herself, only what her species taught her since childhood. Admiration, they said, was universal. Desire was natural. Appreciation was guaranteed. But the station would prove her wrong. Zaylira had been sent to the Galactic Exchange Hub as a diplomat in training. Sarathi elders believed she had the elegance to represent their species. She believed the same, though for slightly different reasons. It wasn't that she thought she was better than others. She simply believed others naturally wished for her attention. She moved through the colorful market, watching ships arrive from distant planets. She admired the way the humans walked with confidence, the way the tall Onkar warriors carried heavy crates with ease, and the way small winged Talari creatures chirped excitedly as they traded trinkets. Everything fascinated her. As she adjusted the silver diplomatic band around her arm, something unusual caught her eye. A human standing completely still among the movement, observing everything with sharp attention. He wore a dark uniform with clean lines and a small insignia. Commander Elias Ward, the only human assigned to oversee diplomacy on this part of the station. Zaylira expected him to look at her the same way others did. She prepared for a smile or a respectful nod, but Elias simply passed by her with a neutral expression like she was just another traveler. She blinked. "That is strange," she murmured. He didn't slow down. He didn't show interest. He didn't even seem impressed by her appearance. Zaylira stood shocked for a moment. She had never met someone who responded to her with such complete indifference. A Sarathi never faced indifference. She turned her head and watched him disappear into a side corridor. "I must understand this human," she said quietly to herself. Later that day, Zaylira was scheduled to meet the diplomatic officers for a brief introduction session. The meeting chamber was a wide, circular room with transparent walls showing the stars outside. Representatives from several species waited in their seats. Elias Ward stood near the center table, reviewing data on a holographic screen. Zaylira stepped inside gracefully, her long robes gliding behind her. She expected someone to notice her immediately. Usually, when she entered a room, at least one person smiled warmly or bowed their head. But here, no one did. The diplomats were focused on their work. A pair of Yalten scribes argued quietly over translation codes. A human assistant typed on a data pad. A Drask official yawned. Elias barely glanced at her. Zaylira felt like she had stepped into a completely different universe. She approached Elias with a polite smile. "Commander Ward," she said softly, "I am Zaylira of the Sarathi. It is a pleasure to join your diplomatic session." He nodded once. "Welcome. Please take a seat. The meeting will begin shortly." His voice was calm, formal and distant. Zaylira expected more, some admiration, a warm greeting, or even a compliment. But Elias simply returned to his holographic screen. She blinked again, confused. She sat down, unsure if she had done something wrong. As the meeting started, Zaylira listened carefully. She wanted to understand why humans behaved differently. Every time Elias explained a topic, she studied his face, his tone, and his posture. When he described upcoming negotiations with the Rakari, he spoke clearly but without emotion. When he mentioned the cultural customs of the Ankar, his voice did not waver. And when he called on Zaylira to introduce her role, he did so without hesitation or admiration, just simple order. "Zaylira of the Sarathi," he said, "please introduce yourself to the group." She did, but inside her thoughts were spinning. Why was he unaffected? Why did he not admire her like others did? Was something wrong with her? Or was this human different? She could not let the question go. After the session ended, diplomats began leaving. Zaylira remained seated, thinking deeply. Elias was gathering his files when she approached him again. "Commander," she said softly, "may I ask a question?" He looked up. "Of course." She hesitated for a moment, then asked, "Did I, do something wrong during the introductions?" "No," he replied simply. "You performed well." Zaylira tilted her head. "Then why did you not show any reaction toward me?" Elias raised an eyebrow. "Reaction?" "Yes," she said earnestly. "Most species show admiration or interest when meeting someone new from the Sarathi. But you—" She paused. "You reacted as if I were simply a normal person." "Because you are," he said. Zaylira stood silent. Elias continued, "I treat all diplomats equally. My approach is professional, not emotional. That is how human diplomacy works." Zaylira felt her heart tremble a little, not in pain, but in confusion. "No admiration at all?" she whispered. "Not even a little?" Elias gave a very small chuckle. "You are polite, well-spoken, and clearly trained. But admiration? That is something earned, not automatic." Earned. The word echoed in her mind like a new language. She had never heard it used that way before. That evening, Zaylira walked through the quiet gardens of the station, thinking about Elias's words. She watched shimmering plants glow under artificial starlight. She listened to gentle water flowing through the decorative streams. But none of it calmed her thoughts. "All my life," she murmured, "I believed everyone admired me, that it was natural, that it was part of who I am." A small winged creature landed on a branch nearby, chirping a melody. Zaylira looked at it softly. Was that belief wrong? She wondered aloud. As she leaned against a tall silver tree, her thoughts circled back to Elias. His calm voice, his neutral expression, his steady eyes that looked at her like she was simply another diplomat. No more, no less. It felt strange, but also grounding. She remembered something one of the Sarathi elders once whispered. "Be careful of humans. They do not see the galaxy the way we do." Zaylira smiled softly. Perhaps they are right. But instead of fear, she felt curiosity. For the first time in her life, someone had treated her as a normal individual, not a symbol, not an admired figure, not an object of desire. It was new, unsettling, different, and she wanted to understand it. With her thoughts steadying, Zaylira made a quiet promise under the glowing trees. "Tomorrow, I will speak to Elias Ward again, and I will learn why he sees truth differently." She did not know it yet, but this decision would change her entire future. The next morning, the Galactic Exchange Hub was alive with the usual noise. Ships docking, traders shouting over prices, announcements echoing across the wide halls. But Zaylira barely noticed any of it. Her thoughts were still focused on the strange human who refused to react to her the way everyone else did. Commander Elias Ward. She repeated the name in her mind as she prepared for another day of diplomatic work. She adjusted her robes, practiced her diplomatic greeting, and reviewed negotiation protocols. But the real mission she set for herself was simple: understand why this human was immune to her charm. When she arrived at the diplomacy chamber, Elias was already there. He stood beside the central table, analyzing a large map of the station and reviewing upcoming meetings. Several alien diplomats greeted him as they entered. He replied politely to all of them, formal, neutral, and consistent. Zalira watched closely. Elias treated everyone the same way he treated her. That alone surprised her. She approached him again, hoping to learn more. "Good morning, Commander Ward," she said with her calm Sarathi smile. "Good morning, Zalira," he replied with a short nod. "Ready for today's negotiations?" His tone was steady as always. Zalira sat beside him. "I am ready, but I also want to observe how you handle each situation." Elias raised a brow slightly but didn't question it. "You may observe as much as you like. Learning diplomatic styles is part of your training." She nodded, but that was not the only reason she wanted to observe him. The meeting began, and representatives from many species gathered. Today they discussed trade routes, cultural misunderstandings, and security measures. Zalira listened, but she also watched Elias with intense curiosity. When an Ankar official spoke loudly and aggressively, Elias remained calm. When a Talari diplomat chirped rapidly, confusing half the room, Elias translated the message with patience. When a Yalten representative made a small mistake in data, Elias corrected him gently without embarrassment. He never raised his voice, never lost focus, never reacted emotionally. And still, he never showed admiration towards Zalira, not a single extra smile, not a moment of distraction, not one lingering glance. To Zalira, it was completely alien. After the meeting ended, Zalira quickly stepped beside Elias before he could leave. "Commander, may I walk with you?" she asked as politely as possible. Elias studied her for a moment, then nodded. "Of course, I'm heading to the eastern wing." They walked through a long hallway made of glass panels showing the stars outside. The silence between them was calm, not uncomfortable. Zalira finally spoke. "I was observing you today." Elias smiled a little. "I noticed." She looked down shyly. "I want to understand your nature, the human nature. You speak so clearly, and yet you do not respond the way others do around me." Elias slowed his steps, turning slightly toward her. "What do you mean?" Zalira chose her words carefully. "Commander, in my culture, people always show strong reactions when they meet a Sarathi. They call us graceful, beautiful, or impressive. They look at us with admiration. They act differently around us, but you—" She took a breath. "You speak to me as if I am just a regular person." Elias thought for a moment. His reply was simple but firm. "That is because you are a regular person." Zalira felt a soft shock in her chest again. "But the Sarathi are—" "Respected," Elias interrupted calmly. "Intelligent, skilled, important in diplomacy. Yes, I know. But none of that changes my approach. Humans learn to treat others with fairness. Admiration is something we give by choice, not something automatic." Zalira found herself staring at him, mesmerized by this strange idea. "By choice," she whispered. "Yes," Elias said. "Admiration is earned through actions, not appearance, not presence, not assumptions." Zalira felt her heart beat faster, not out of attraction, but out of realization. Her entire life had been built on the idea that admiration was guaranteed. Now she was meeting someone who lived by the opposite rule. Later that day, Zalira joined Elias in a multi-species negotiation practice. It was part of her training, a simulation designed to prepare her for real diplomatic challenges. In the practice session, several volunteers acted as members of a fictional alien faction. They were instructed to behave unpredictably and cause misunderstandings. It was meant to be harmless. But Zaylira made a mistake. During the simulation, a tall reptilian actor complimented her quick thinking. Zaylira smiled warmly and responded with a Sarathi gesture, a slight tilt of the head and a soft, glowing pulse from her skin. Among her people, the gesture meant, "I appreciate your admiration." Among the reptilian species being simulated, however, the gesture had a very different meaning. It was a territorial claim. Suddenly, the whole simulation froze. The reptilian representative stared at her with shock. The volunteers whispered among themselves. Even some of the other trainees blinked nervously. Elias stepped forward immediately. "What is happening?" he asked. The reptilian actor hissed. "She made a claim gesture toward me. That is a serious offense in our culture." Zaylira gasped softly. "No, I did not mean that." Elias looked at her calmly. "What gesture did you use?" Zaylira repeated it slowly, the head tilt, the soft glow. Elias closed his eyes for a moment, then nodded. "It's a misunderstanding," he said firmly. "That gesture means appreciation in Sarathi culture. Zaylira did not intend offense." The reptilian actor hesitated, then nodded slowly. "Very well. We accept the explanation." The simulation resumed. Zaylira felt shaken. Her misunderstanding almost caused a breakdown in the exercise. When the session finally ended, she hurried out of the chamber, feeling embarrassed and confused. Elias followed. "Zaylira?" he called gently. "Wait." She stopped near a quiet balcony overlooking the station's docking area. Her voice was soft and troubled. "I thought he admired me," she murmured. "So I responded the way my culture taught me. But instead I insulted him. Why am I making so many mistakes?" Elias stood beside her, keeping a respectful distance. "You are not making mistakes," he said. "You are learning. This station is filled with many species. Cultural signals can easily be misunderstood." Zaylira looked down. "But I always assumed admiration was the same everywhere." "And that," Elias said, "is why you struggle." She turned toward him slowly. Elias continued, his tone gentle but honest. "Zaylira, you are kind-hearted and intelligent, but your people taught you something that is not true across the galaxy. Not everyone admires you. Not everyone desires your presence. Most species simply treat you with politeness, not attraction. Politeness. Respect, not admiration. It was like discovering a new law of physics." Zaylira whispered, "Then, what have I been seeing all my life?" "Misunderstood kindness," Elias replied. "Confusion, courtesy, professional respect." He met her eyes. "And not everything is about attraction, Zaylira. Sometimes people are simply being friendly." She breathed slowly, letting the words sink in. For the first time, she questioned the teachings she held since childhood. Elias continued, "You want to be a diplomat. That means learning the difference between admiration and respect, the difference between someone wanting something from you and someone simply valuing your presence." Zaylira felt something new, clarity, and she wanted more of it. She looked up at Elias. "Will you teach me, Commander? Will you help me understand your way of seeing the truth?" Elias nodded without hesitation. "I will." Zaylira felt a calm warmth in her chest, not admiration, not desire, but respect for someone who dared to treat her differently. This human had shown her something no one ever had before, a world where her value was not based on admiration, but on understanding. The days that followed were unlike anything Zaylira had experienced in her life. Every morning she met Commander Elias Ward for lessons not found in any Sarathi training manual and not taught by any diplomat on her home world. These were lessons about perspective, culture, and truth. Elias greeted her the same way each time, calm, neutral, unshaken. He offered no extra warmth, no extra admiration, no special treatment. To him, she was simply a student. And for the first time in her life, Zaylira felt that being simply something was not an insult. It was grounding. It was real. She found herself wanting to understand more. Their first lesson took place in a quiet observation room overlooking the galaxy. The stars shined brightly outside the transparent walls. Elias stood beside a holographic map of various alien cultural signals. "Today," he said, "we study body language." Zaylira nodded politely. Elias pointed at the display. "What does a head tilt mean for your people?" "It means admiration. A sign that we accept attention," Zaylira answered without hesitation. "For the Ankar," Elias said, "it means challenge. For the Talari, it means confusion. For the Rakari, it is considered threatening. And for humans—" He paused. "For humans, it usually means curiosity." Zaylira blinked at the differences. "So one gesture can mean many things," she murmured. "Yes," Elias replied, "and diplomats must understand all of them. That is why your assumption earlier caused trouble." Zaylira lowered her gaze. "I thought he admired me." "And he didn't," Elias said gently. "He was only complimenting your skill." Zaylira felt a strange heaviness in her chest. "We Sarathi were always told others admire us. It is part of our identity." "Do you believe that now?" Elias asked. She hesitated. "I do not know." It was the first time in her life she answered that way. Their second lesson happened in the training courtyard. Elias had set up several holographic figures representing different species. Each hologram performed a gesture, some polite, some aggressive, some confused, some friendly. Elias stood back and watched Zaylira carefully. "Tell me what each gesture means," he instructed. Zaylira tried. She really did. But half of her answers were based on Sarathi understanding and ended up being wrong. "That is friendly," she said about a gesture from an aquatic species. "No," Elias corrected. "That is their hunting pose." She pointed to a gesture of a tall mammal-like hologram. "That means attraction." "Incorrect," Elias said. "That is a greeting." Every time Zaylira got something wrong, she became more and more aware of how limited her understanding had been. Her cheeks shimmered with soft embarrassment. "I never knew I misunderstood so much." Elias shook his head. "You are not wrong. You are simply unaware. And awareness is the first step to becoming a true diplomat." Zaylira looked at him with deep curiosity. "How do humans learn so much about others?" "We do not assume," Elias replied. "We observe first. We ask questions. We confirm meanings. We do not decide the truth before knowing it." Zaylira felt that sentence strike her heart. Do not decide the truth before knowing it. It was so opposite to her upbringing that it felt revolutionary. Their third lesson took place in the cafe section of the station, an area packed with alien travelers enjoying strange foods, colorful drinks, and animated conversations. Zaylira walked with Elias through the crowded space. Every species behaved differently. A group of humans laughed loudly. A winged creature hovered above its table. A robotic traveler scanned the menu using a beam of light. A reptilian family hissed softly to one another. The diversity was incredible. Elias stopped near the center of the cafe. "Now," he said, "I want you to observe something. Pay attention to how each species looks at the others." Zaylira watched carefully. Most species kept their focus on their food or their companions. Others gave quick glances to strangers. A few gave respectful nods, but none of these reactions resembled the exaggerated admiration she always expected from others. She felt her chest tighten. They do not look at each other with desire, she whispered. No, Elias confirmed. They look at each other with curiosity, respect, or caution. But admiration is rare. Attraction is rarer. Desire almost never appears in public. Zalira looked around again, paying closer attention. A human woman smiled at a passing alien. A Rakari warrior bowed politely. A robot greeted a merchant with a light scan. None of it looked romantic or admiring. It was all just normal interaction. Zalira finally spoke. I misunderstood everything. Her voice shook softly, not from shame, but from revelation. I thought all these signs meant the same thing I was taught. But each species has their own meaning. Exactly, Elias said. Zalira rested her hand on the table, her voice barely above a whisper. Elias, do you think I have lived my whole life seeing something that was never there? He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he looked directly at her with a calm, steady gaze, the kind she now realized held no hidden meaning. I think, he said gently, you lived your life with only one lens. Now, you are learning there are many. The words reached her like a soft light. She felt her heart steady. Later that evening, they sat in one of the quiet gardens of the station. Artificial stars sparkled above them. Water flowed peacefully in a narrow stream. The silence was comforting. Zalira finally opened up about her past. In Sarathi culture, she said softly, children are taught that our glow, our empathy, our presence, all of it draws admiration from other species. The elders said it was our gift, our pride, our power. Elias listened without interruption. They told us that admiration is proof of our worth. That if others do not admire us, then something is wrong with us. She swallowed. So I learned to see admiration everywhere, even when it did not exist. Elias nodded slowly. I understand. Zalira sighed, her voice trembling slightly. My people never taught us about true respect. They taught us about being admired, not about being understood. She looked at Elias, this strange human who treated her differently from anyone she had met. You showed me something new, something my people never taught me. And what is that? Elias asked. That I am more than admiration, she said quietly. I can be valued for my mind, for my words, for my actions, not just for what others think they want from me. A soft glow pulsed under her skin, not the glow of admiration, but the glow of realization. Elias offered a small, approving nod. That is the beginning of true identity, Zalira, seeing yourself without illusions. She looked up at the stars. For the first time, they looked different, bigger, more open, full of possibilities she never imagined. Their peaceful moment was interrupted when a station announcement echoed overhead. Attention. Diplomatic visitors are advised to avoid the northern wing due to minor security concerns. Zalira frowned. Security concerns? Elias stood up slowly. Nothing dangerous yet, but tensions between some alien groups are rising. Zalira felt a strange chill. Will it affect us? Elias gave her a steady look. It might, and that is why your training must continue. The galaxy is unpredictable, and misunderstandings can lead to conflict. Zalira nodded slowly. She had learned much, she had changed much, and she felt something new growing inside her, strength grounded in truth. She was ready to face the next lesson, whatever it might be. But she had no idea how soon the galaxy would test her. The sky above the Nexus Academy shimmered with drifting silver clouds, as if the entire world was waiting for something to happen. Zara stood on the walkway outside the command building, feeling the cool wind brush against her tendrils. Her eyes watched the horizon, but her thoughts were scattered inside her heart. Everything felt different now, lighter, quieter, and strangely warm. For most of her life, she believed a single idea. Everyone wanted her the same way, wanted her attention, her approval, her presence. She thought she was always being chased, always being looked at. It was the belief that shaped her entire behavior and chained her mind. But then a human arrived, a quiet human, a simple human, a stubborn human, Elias. He did not want anything from her except respect and understanding. He did not chase her. He did not fear her. He did not let her ignore the truth. And that truth was still unfolding. The meeting before the storm. Elias walked toward her now, his steps steady. He carried a datapad under his arm, and his face looked calm even though they were hours away from a crisis. Behind him, the Nexus Academy buzzed with engineers and cadets preparing for a defensive deployment. The rogue faction that had attacked the station earlier had not disappeared. They were regrouping beyond the asteroid field, gathering ships in silence. "Zara," Elias said as he reached her. "Command wants us inside. The council is waiting." Her heart tightened. She turned toward him, searching his face for even a trace of fear. "You are not nervous," she said softly. Elias shrugged. "Nervousness doesn't help. Preparation does." Zara looked away again. "I have lived with a false belief for so long. I do not trust myself yet. How can I face a galactic council when I am still learning who I am?" He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Because learning who you are does not make you weak. It makes you honest, and honesty builds strength." Zara looked into his eyes, those calm human eyes, and felt something steady inside her. She nodded. "Then let's go." The council's decision. Inside the command hall, representatives of 8 species gathered around a circular table. Screens floating in the air displayed enemy ship formations. Everyone looked tense, everyone except the human ambassador, who sat with his hands calmly folded. Commander Rel, a tall reptilian officer, spoke first. "The rogue fleet is increasing. If they enter Academy space, thousands of students will be in danger." "We should evacuate," said another council member. "No," Zara said, surprising even herself. "If we evacuate, they will follow. This academy trains young minds from every Alliance world. Losing it would break unity." All eyes turned to her. Elias gave her a small nod. Zara took a slow breath. "We defend, but not with aggression. We show them that unity stands stronger than fear." Commander Rel narrowed his eyes. "And how do you propose we do that?" Zara raised her chin. "With a combined shield formation. No species fights alone. Everyone links their ships. We create a barrier that shows cooperation, not violence." The council whispered among themselves. It was a bold idea, risky, but powerful. Then the human ambassador spoke. "I support her." Elias stood beside Zara. "So do I." The decision was made. The academy would stand together, preparing for battle. As the fleet launched into position around the academy, Zara felt her pulse racing. Ships from 8 species arranged themselves in a glowing ring, their shields linking into one shimmering wall of energy. The rogue coalition ships approached from the dark side of the asteroid belt, firing probe shots that crackled against the unified shield. Inside the control deck, Zara watched readings flow across her console. "Shield strength at 87%, said an officer behind her. "Enemy fleet closing to 30,000 kilometers, Elias added. Zara nodded. She kept her voice firm. "Hold formation. No one breaks the line." This was the first time she led a multi-species defense. The responsibility weighed on her, but Elias stood beside her, steady as a mountain. "What if they break the shield?" she whispered. "Then we reinforce it," Elias said. "What if the line collapses? Then we rebuild it. What if I fail?" Elias turned to her, meeting her eyes. "You won't, because you know the truth now. and the truth makes you stronger than you have ever been. Zara felt the last of her doubt begin to dissolve. The moment of impact. The Rogue Coalition's flagship fired its main cannon. A giant beam struck the unified shield, sending vibrations deep into the Academy's core. The deck shook violently. Officers grabbed their consoles to stay upright. "Shield's down to 63%, someone shouted. Zara didn't hesitate. She activated the intercom and spoke clearly. "All units, synchronize frequencies. Follow my lead." She adjusted the shield modulation, a technique she had once studied but never dared to use. It required precise timing. If she miscalculated, half the fleet could overload. But she trusted herself now. She trusted the truth she had learned. The fleets adjusted in perfect harmony. The shield brightened, becoming thicker, stronger. The next enemy blast hit the barrier and dispersed in a ripple of light. "It's working," Elias said with a grin. Zara allowed herself a small smile. "Yes, for the first time, I believe in the correct thing." The turning point. The enemy ships hesitated. Their formation wavered. They had expected fear, disorganization, panic. But the Academy stood united, species working together as one. Zara saw her chance. "Open a communication channel," she commanded. Elias tapped the console. "Channel open." Zara addressed the enemy fleet. Her voice was steady, and her face appeared on every hostile ship's screen. "This Academy is a place of learning, a place of unity. You believe you can break us because you think we are divided. You look at our differences and imagine weakness. But you are wrong." She leaned closer. "Strength does not come from being feared. Strength comes from being understood." The rogue commander appeared on the screen, his expression uncertain. "Why would you defend humans? They are weak, emotional, simple." Zara glanced at Elias, then back at the screen. "You think they are simple? Then you misunderstand their greatest strength. Humans see through illusions, even illusions we believe about ourselves." The enemy commander frowned. "What do you mean?" "I once believed something false," Zara said. "I thought every species desired the same thing from me. I thought the galaxy saw me in only one way. But a human showed me the truth. He taught me that respect is not taken. It is earned." Elias looked down, slightly embarrassed but also proud. Zara continued. "You fight because you think everyone sees you as less. But the truth is different. You only become less when you stop trying to be more." A silence followed. Then slowly, the rogue ships began to pull back. Not because they were defeated, but because they were unsure for the first time. After the withdrawal hours later, the Academy fleet returned to dock. Crew members cheered. The shield had held. The battle was avoided. Lives were saved. Zara and Elias walked through the courtyard together, exhausted but proud. "You did it," Elias said softly. "No," she replied. "We did it." She looked at him with calm eyes. "I spent years assuming too much about others, and assuming too much about myself. But you helped me see that truth is not what we assume. It is what we understand." Elias smiled. "So what will you do now?" "I will teach," Zara said. "The younger students need someone who can help them understand themselves better. I want them to grow without the chains that held me." "That sounds perfect," Elias said. They walked farther until they reached the Academy's garden, quiet, soft, filled with pale blue flowers that glowed faintly in the dusk. Zara stopped and faced him. "Elias," she said gently, "I used to believe everyone wanted something from me, but you showed me that real respect is simple, honest." "Human," Elias nodded. "I just told you the truth, and you gave me freedom," she added. There was no tension between them, no fear, no misunderstanding, just trust. For the first time in her life, Zara felt truly balanced, truly herself. And she knew the truth now. Not everyone wanted something from her. Only one person gave her something real, understanding. And that simple truth changed her future, and the future of the galaxy.